One of the biggest ripoffs in real estate is tenants' rights, which really should be renamed grand theft real estate. We have a whole conspiracy of players, government players, non nonprofit organizations, tenants, immigrant rights groups who basically work together to destroy the economic value of real estate, particularly here in Los Angeles. And when we get people who take over properties illegally or wrongly, it hurts the tenants because the rest of the inventory is now competing for fewer spaces, drives up the rents for the rest of the law-abiding tenants. It hurts prospective buyers. There's less properties for sale. It hurts sellers because obviously they lose out on the income and the wealth they otherwise should get. It hurts cities because it keeps property taxes down. The values are less. Who wants to live next to squatters or thieves, I guess I would say better. And also because the property can't sell, the city, county, and state doesn't get the income from the property being resold. So, there may have been a time when the biggest problem in a city regarding real estate was protecting tenants who were being abused by landlords. I've not seen those cases in my experience. I see every day people having their property stolen from them, taken from them, spending thousands of dollars in expenses, legal expenses. And we all seen these. The only thing is, it's getting worse than we ever imagined. We had rent control, a push for that, and then COVID pushed it forward where we had not just rent control in certain cities, countywide, statewide in California, and then nationally. Basically, the government told owners, you can't collect rents because of COVID. And a lot of those restrictions have continued in different formats in different cities and different counties. Really, it's just a form of taking without compensation. We have a takings clause in our Fifth Amendment that says that nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. Basically, when the government says, we decide where the property should go to protect homeless, protect these people, protect those people, they're taking property with no compensation at all. And so really it should be, and when a squatter goes into property, it's amazing. Somebody goes in your car and drives it away. That's grand theft auto. They're arrested perhaps or put into jail perhaps. They walk in your house and change the locks. They're stealing a $500,000, $1 million property. They're stealing income worth thousands, $2,000, $5,000 a month to people. Some people work their whole lives to buy real estate for their retirement, and that's taken away by squatters or thieves, really. We call them squatters because it sounds better than calling them really what they are. And so all of this has worked to not just hurt the people directly involved, but indirectly, taxpayers. And the American dream is harder and harder to achieve because of these laws. We're going to talk about that in detail. When I started in real estate in 1986, around that time was a movie called Pacific Heights. It was with Michael Keaton, very scary, about a young couple buy a property. They get a nightmare tenant who destroys the property. They end up spending thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars on legal fees, expenses, lose a fortune, and resell the property to somebody else. It's a horror story. But you know what? I see that every day. I literally looked at a probate case where the estate's losing $275,000 because of what looks to me to be a squatter on a property. So what was a nightmare movie in 1986, really today, is just kind of becoming the norm. It's just really kind of how life is in Los Angeles, California. We accept it. We call them squatters because we don't want to offend the people. So let's go a little more detail. The good news is, for those of us in Los Angeles, that other cities are getting as bad or worse than LA. So for example, in New York, here's a story that's been covered on the news. To break into her house, change the locks on her house, she gets arrested and goes to jail. I've never heard of an illegal squatter being arrested unless there's drugs involved. Never heard of them being arrested. They get told to leave maybe, or they're told to go to civil court to be adjudicated. Here's the owner of her own property who changed the lock. She's so fed up. And I think she also turned off the utilities and she got arrested. Now, again, in the world of politics, we would say, oh, that's a bad landlord. Yeah, it's a bad landlord because she, along the way, gets her property stolen from her and maybe violates the law. Nobody's saying we should take the law in our own hands, but we are saying neither should we allow tenants to take advantage of the property. Also in Seattle, same thing. Here's a case where neighbors are trying to shame this guy. He's a serial squatter, serial thief. He's squatting a $2 million property, despite allegedly he makes $400,000 a year. And he hasn't paid rent, owes over $80,000. So again, the good news is LA isn't the only one experiencing these problems. This is becoming a normal problem around the country, where these laws that were meant to protect poor tenants are being abused regularly by these people and turning it into a business, a criminal element. One of the groups recently in Los Angeles, really, it's called Beverly Hills, but really it's in LA County, and it's in a area called the Beverly Hills Post Office. They took a Beverly Hills mansion and turned it into like an Airbnb for parties. And the neighbors had to hire security because the people coming in were drunk, doing drugs, carrying on. Beautiful home, beautiful, in Beverly Grove Place. Look at this thing. And of course, there's police coming all the time to get people out. There's people passing out because of drugs and carrying on in party atmosphere and such. So welcome to what this looks like. Now, it has gotten so bad in Los Angeles that we actually now have, I'm sorry, it's going to be getting worse, because we actually have trainers training how to squat in the property. We have illegal immigrants that our president wants to call, I think, newcomers or visitors. And so now they're taking to the internet to teach their colleagues how you invade houses and hold them for value. And so this is just a guy who's on his way here from, I think, Venezuela, if I remember correctly. It's in Spanish. And he's advising how easy it is to move in a property and they can't get you out. And you can create a fake lease and act like the property is yours. So we now have training programs for criminals on how to take advantage of squatting. Now, I mentioned recently, well, let me go a little step further. We now have international groups that are doing burglary. They're coming here. It was called burglary tourism. And we know this can happen with the squatters as well, where criminals come from other countries and commit crime because we're easy targets, and they can go back to their home. So here's a case where Irvine's indicating that there's a whole group of people who come here from other countries, attack the houses, and go home. And so you have this other guy training them on how to be squatters. And next thing you know, the next trend in this process is going to be training people how to come from other countries to squat on our property and take advantage of it. Now, there is some good news. I think if you follow my weekly real estate podcast, you'll know that I recently was highlighting a guy called the Squatter Hunter. His name is Flash, and what he did was he had a family member who had a terrible car accident where she had brain damage, and she was taken advantage of by some guy, pretty well-off guy, moved into her house and wasn't paying any rent. And so Flash, who was a handyman, and he also licensed to carry, went in the property and was able to act like basically harass the squatter out of the property, which I think was good news. And he has a whole business now on how to fight squatters. So the Squatter Hunter is a solution. One of the problems is our city is actively working to aid these people and making it harder and harder. There's a fake story, and I'm going to just point out, it's in the LA Times, not worth going behind the paywall to the soon-to-be bankrupt LA Times, but their headline was that that we don't have enough legal help for squatters, thieves here in LA, and so the city is now spending tax dollars that they tax homes of sales from law-abiding citizens, take the money, and give legal support to the tenants' rights groups. Now, the thing that's most annoying is anybody who has ever been to a courtroom in LA County for eviction knows there are multiple nonprofits who offer free legal help to anybody who wants to just basically make their case for free. And so you have the landlord who is having to pay for an attorney, and already we have nonprofits who are helping these thieves get away with it. And now we have the city taking tax dollars to pay these attorneys because there just aren't enough attorneys helping enough squatters. It's going to get a lot worse. For example, we have this whole idea of forgiving loans. And so while we pretend as though government and nonprofit workers are getting billions in student debt, we talk about how nice it is that people get their loans forgiven. Well, who gets that? Well, nurses and teachers and first responders and Peace Corps volunteers and social workers. Well, included in this group are basically law school students who go to law schools and then work for social justice organizations. I was reading the American Bar Association Journal last month. They had several stories of people who had $250,000, $350,000 of student loan wiped out to go work for nonprofit organizations to help tenants' rights basically steal equity from the same taxpayers who paid for the taxes for their student loans. So this whole thing is just going around and around. And our city, of course, is only too eager to help. Here's a case where LA tried to stop landlords from harassing tenants. Now it's wrapping up enforcement. How is it doing that? Taking tax dollars and giving it. And again, I don't come across many cases of legitimate tenants' rights. I come up with everyday cases of terrible people doing terrible things to steal equity from people who otherwise get it. And to show you how bad it's gotten so bad that even the tenants don't like what's happening with the laws. We created these laws forcing new construction to be low-income, high-density units. So in Boyle Heights, a developer actually followed the law, which is very hard to do, and he took a plan of a property. It was a 5-unit property, and he was going to build it into a 52-unit building, and which was compliant with law because they want density near train stations and such. And they have extremely affordable units under this law as part of the process. And what happens is the tenants in the building of the 5 units all complained and got a whole mass protest because they're in rent control and they will give up their units. The 5 units don't want to give them up to build 52 units. You know, this is just utter chaos. And I think that's the problem with this thing at the end of the day is that you can say you're for tenants' rights. Of the list of problems in Los Angeles, California today, tenants being abused by landlords is way, way down the list from where I sit of what I see happening. People losing homes because they're being abused by landlords? No, it's because they can't pay rent in the city that has a business climate that's disastrous. And rather than improve the business climate and stop companies from leaving here and taking jobs with them, the city of LA is taking money from taxpayers and giving it to social justice attorneys to attack landlords' income and wealth, which hurts all of us. What do you think? Do we really need more tenants' rights? Are tenants really being abused in Los Angeles? Or do you see the destruction of not just income, wealth, our tax base, and our way of life, but just a good order of society as a result of what's going on? Put your comments down below. I'm at Bill Gross Probate. If I could help in any way, make today your best day ever. Thank you.